my name is Tara Kachaturoff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today we have as our special guest Josh Ashford, who is the founder of WebDroid. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Tara. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and we're really excited because we're actually having you back to do a two-part series with us on successful entrepreneurs, and we're really excited to do that with you and have that opportunity. But before we get started, why don't we talk a little bit about you and your background and how you got started with WebDroid. So let's go.
Sure. Well, I am a coding instructor by trade. I've worked in the city of Detroit for the last 4 years, teaching young people how to code foundational languages like HTML, CSS, and that leveraged me into having a more personal relationship with the students. I've taught well over 200 students how to code over the last few years, and I really have been able to leverage that into different programs, different apprenticeships, internships, and mentorship opportunities for them. So that's really what I do on a day-to-day basis, work with young people and try to get them into that next stage of life.
And what is the age group that you're working with?
Typically high school. I've worked with some younger students as well, middle school, elementary, but the sweet spot, I believe, is high school because they're really on that precipice of, that next stage of life. And ushering them into that zone is really important to me, making sure that they're prepared and whatnot. So that's really where I like to focus my efforts.
And with that, you also have a company called WebDroid. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at WebDroid?
So WebDroid is kind of similar to what I do in my day-to-day job. I own a web design firm. That's what we do typically. We make and maintain different websites for small businesses in and around the city of Detroit, in the Metro Detroit area. I take some of my students that I work with and have taught foundational languages to in the schools, DPS primarily, and sometimes I'll hire them and to come on board and work with me and help to maintain the websites. So it's kind of like a revolving door. They get experience seeing what it would be like to actually work on a web design firm post-college. Right? So after they graduate with a computer science degree or software engineering degree, they can expect to work in an environment similar to the one that I provide for them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And are most of them on that trajectory to go into data science and things like that?
Most of them, yes. I try to hone in on that, area typically. Some of them are more interested in digital marketing and these sorts of things that are a little adjacent, but typically, yes, software engineering is one of the main, career tracks that I attract, I should say.
And how do people come to find your training and such? How do the young men and women get connected with you?
Typically through me teaching them.
I mean, how do they find your organization? Like, how are they?
The clients.
The students. Like, how are they? Are the schools kind of telling them about this extra program that they can do with you, or?
Oh, well, typically, yes. Typically through the interview process, they kind of are aware of who I am. So for example, right now I work with Apple, and I teach their coding language. It's called Swift. So when I work with them, they are kind of aware of me because I've already done work in the communities, and I've already done work, in and around the city of Detroit. So they kind of seek me out. And then from there, it's usually a, 1-2 for me to offer some different career opportunities for them and for the students some of the students want to explore, further. Some don't, right? And that's typically how I would do my recruiting there, right? I really gauge the students' interests.
So I actually didn't know that. So is Swift the language that they write their iOS in?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I actually didn't know the name of it.
Yep, it's called Swift.
Learn something new every day. Oh, that's interesting. Wow, fascinating. Thanks so much for telling us a little bit about your background and things like that. And what we'd like to do now is I want to turn this to talking about some concepts and things that are really important to entrepreneurs. And I know you've lived all these because you are an entrepreneur. And the two we want to explore this week are mindset and planning your workday, because those things are so critical to giving you that start, and it's like eating breakfast in the morning, if that's still a thing that people do.
Sometimes.
Yeah, so we'll have to talk about that when we get to how do you start your day. But the first thing I'd like to talk about is mindset. And to open that up, my first question to you is, like, what role does mindset play in your life as an entrepreneur?
A huge one. keeping a positive mindset is paramount. It really ushers you into the day and ushers you out of the day. So I like to ease into my day and again ease out. I think of it as like an on-ramp, off-ramp kind of thing. It's honestly very important to me because I notice that a lot of times when I wake up in the morning, if I'm not getting started in the right way, I immediately wake up and look at my phone, for example, see all the notifications and, people who may need me. I'm not gonna have a good day, right? Because I'm immediately jumping into things before I can be there for myself. And like you said, maybe eat breakfast, right? Or maybe just wash your face, right?
Yeah, before you grab the phone.
Exactly. And that kind of, made me have a really rigorous, morning routine. Not rigorous, I shouldn't say rigorous, but intentional morning routine, I should say, and an intentional evening routine where I can kind of usher the day out as well and prepare myself for the next day. That works well for me.
So when we talk about mindset, obviously we can have a positive mindset or a negative mindset.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do for yourself to help you maintain a positive mindset? Because not every day is going to be perfect. I mean, we all have those.
This is true.
What do you do?
I rely heavily on my community. So my inner circle is very important to me. I actually I have some friends that I've had for 20 plus years. I'm 27 years old now, and some of these people I've known since I was 5 years old. I went to a school, actually, an elementary school in Detroit. It's called Golightly. And the camaraderie in that school I've noticed as I've grown older is not like other schools. We're all still friends. We all still engage with one another, right? We have reunions periodically each year. So that keeps me grounded because these people know me. My girlfriend, my parents, they really pour into me so that I can keep my cup full and pour into the students and pour into others and different business opportunities and things like that.
It's interesting that you bring up the fact that they've known you a long time. That gives you a certain sense of stability and a foundation versus like if you didn't, like you moved to a new city and you don't know anybody and you don't have any grounding.
Yes. And that's not to say that sometimes I don't, feel necessarily alone in my entrepreneurial endeavor, right? Because I do.
Yeah.
But when I do get into those modes or those mindsets, I have a community that can really help lift me up. And I know that everyone doesn't have that, so I feel very blessed and fortunate to have that and be able to lean into that.
Yeah, and and I think that's that whole concept there. I know when people talk about mindset, they actually don't really ever address that piece. You can do all the things you want in your mind, but we are not little solo things running around the world. We need community and connections with others, and they never really bring that up about how maybe they talk about family. Family isn't always good for some people. For a lot of people, that's no foundation at all. In fact, it works against them. But I don't think they really realize how knowing there's people out there in the perimeter that know who you are, can help you out, remind you who you are.
Yes. And even to your point, your family may not always understand your entrepreneurial endeavor, right? There are not, many entrepreneurs because it's tough, right? It's a tough road. You have to build things from, the bottom up, right? It takes years a lot of times. And a lot of times when I hang with my community, I don't want to even speak about my career. I don't want to speak about work, right?
Right.
I want to talk about something else. Right?
Exactly.
I don't want to leave work and talk about work more, right? That's like, but a lot of times they already know that, right? Because they know me. So they can talk to me about something else that I like, right? Some type of show or, that I don't get to watch all the time, right? That I miss, but they can fill me in, right? Or tell me about a movie that they saw or just hear about their life. That does a lot for me as well.
And that's a great point you bring up about let's not keep talking about it. Because and that really goes for everything. I mean, there's so many other things in life to talk about rather than going to a party and talking about work. Really? There's got to be other things. Yeah, that's... what is, like, you go through your day and again, still staying on the mindset thing, things happen during the day. You get a phone call, you check your email and it's like, something that can be like something where you got to drop everything
Yeah.
and pivot really fast. Like when I got something from Google the other day and I had to like drop everything because it became mission critical from Google
Yes, yes.
about some account. What do you do during the day to get you back on that mindset? Do you have any routines? Do you do like like actors do, let's go back into character?
Right,
what
right.
do you do?
You know, I find that hopefully this, kind of answers your question, is on the same wavelength, but the students that I engage with, they really fill me up. And that's something that I didn't know would happen when I first started teaching in the inner city. My initial background is in art, liberal art. And when I started teaching, it was, some technology introduced to the art path that I was already on. And the students keep me young. They keep me laughing. They keep me, joyful. So sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I'll, think to myself, "Oh, I don't really feel like going to work today," right? We all have those moments. But almost every time, it's really amazing. Almost every time I get to work and, I'm there for 3 to 5 minutes and the student says something that's silly or funny or, they want to joke with me, right? That always kind of picks me up. And I don't even realize that it's happening, but by the end of the day, I have more energy. I feel like my cup is full. And that is why I choose to focus more on young people rather than, working in a more like kind of corporate environment. That keeps my entrepreneurial endeavor going, right? Because I want to provide something for them, right? So that they can stay young, so that they can stay youthful. That's why I feel very, poignant on that stage of life, right? That 14 to 18 age range, right? Because it's very pivotal for them. And I want them to keep that young energy to themselves, right? Because it's so easy to get beat up by the world. And like you said, things pop up all the time. They're time sensitive, right? And you gotta, like you said, drop everything and handle that. I want them to be able to keep that youthful energy, right? And because they give that to me, I want to send that back to them. If that makes sense.
And that's a really great point of like working with those type of young people, because they're going out into the world, they're very hopeful, and they're looking for
Yes.
opportunity, and they have their eyes wide open, and everything's like amazing. And that does remind us of who we used to be too.
Yeah.
And it's neat that you're in that, because that environment, you get, you're marinating in that during the day, and it's like in your DNA. It
Yes.
literally does get in your DNA because of the thoughts that go with it and your neural
Yes,
circuitry. But it's like so cool to work around that energy. And
It so is. It so is.
yeah.
And one thing that I would just say, just kind of piggybacking on that, is I think this is the first generation of young people, Gen Zers, where they would rather do impactful work than they're not really fazed by like the money, right? They don't really get the big eyes. They really are more community focused, right? They really want to do impactful work and help people. And me being able to see that as their instructor, I like to, water that plant, right? Rather than trying to get them on some type of career path that would just, be lucrative, right, monetarily, right? They really are focused on helping one another. And I'm really anxious to see where that leads them as a generation in the future.
It's kind of interesting. You almost have your own, you could build into this like your own longitudinal study by checking in with these kids every year and seeing where they go, because you've been doing this for a few years, and you probably have a database where you can connect with them and just see where their stories, where their story goes, where's the next chapter, because it is fascinating to see that. And like you said, you're catching them at a very critical time when they understand what you're saying. They're not too young to understand words and things and meanings, and they've seen enough of life, and they understand what they see on TV or in the media. They get enough of that, so whatever you're filling them up with gives them just like
an extra boost.
And it could change what they choose to study, or if they choose not to go to college, which is always an option, because college is not for everybody, and it doesn't mean anything in terms of success. In fact, the people that I've seen that have not gone to college, and I know this from my own community, they are the people that have 6-figure and 7-figure businesses. And they are extremely young, and they would not quite be at that level necessarily. Certainly not in the $1 Million Club at that age if they were in corporate. I mean, the things I see, because they don't have those limitations and
Yeah,
School
they don't
has
have
a
to
lot
fit
of
in a
limitation.
box.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that we don't, I think we undervalue wisdom and life experience, right? Wisdom is just lived experience, literally, right? And you being able to speak to, an experience from a first person perspective. I think a lot of times when you go to school, you get so engineered into a box, right? And you're
That's the
learning
word.
what
Yeah.
this person said 50 years ago, and that person thought 40 years ago, and this person, and it's like, okay, well, what do I think about that? Or,
Right.
what kind of impact am I going to have on this if someone's already kind of done all of this work, right? There's so many different needs in the world, so many different problems in the world, right? When we go outside in our community, there's blight, there's, underserved peoples, they need help too. And it's interesting, the Apple cohort that I'm running right now, they're actually making apps to solve communal issues, right? And that work is impactful, so following that road into wisdom a lot of times will lead you on a career path that ironically, is probably more lucrative,
Right,
right?
exactly.
So,
And you look back and what are those people that are, retired now and talking about life lessons that they already knew before they got re-engineered out of it when they went to college and got into the whole, corporate thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's the funny thing.
exactly.
You don't need to go through that to get back to what you already knew before you did all the stuff that took you off the path.
Yes.
So yeah, it's
Yes.
kind of funny or sad. So if as we'll turn to the next topic, but if you could provide one piece of advice for young entrepreneurs or even seasoned ones when it comes to mindset, what would that piece of advice be?
I would say try to be intentional about your inner circle, right? You're going to work with a lot of people that you may not like or that may not like you, right? Some people can be envious, some people can be jealous, right? Because they may see you able to navigate in a different way, right? And a lot of times it could impede you if you let it, right? We all have haters in the world sometimes, right? But you don't want to let that get to you. And again, your inner circle is what's really going to pick you up. When you go home, who are you speaking to? When you're off work, when you're off the job, who are you able to, hang out with, right? Go to the bar with, or, hang out at home with, right? Whose home do you go to? Are they speaking life into you, right? Or are they taking away? Right? You don't want people around you that are kind of beating you up and that sort of thing. That's just going to make you feel lower because the life of an entrepreneur is tough. It's tough, and having that inner circle to be able to pour into you is just so important. I'm really a big believer in that.
Really great advice. Yeah, thank you for that. That was a great overview of mindset. Now we're going to turn in the last few minutes. We're going to talk about planning your workday, which goes hand in hand with mindset because man, you better plan it like the good thoughts in mind. So, how do you plan your workday? Are you the kind of person who plans it the night before, or the week before, or the month before? How do you do it? What's your process?
I'm definitely a macro thinker. Sometimes I could be so big picture that I miss some of the details. But I honestly think that serves me well. I like to look far into the future. So I plan events, months ahead, right? And then reverse engineer backward, right? So as long as I have the, shining peak, at the top of the mountain, I know where I'm going, right? And I can fill in the details from there. And actually, I welcome that because that allows me to bring other people in and help, or they can help me, mold what that journey will look like and what it'll be. As I continue to grow in my journey, I really love working with young people, obviously, right? I bring them onto my team, again, kind of like the revolving door, as I mentioned earlier, and they help me fill in those details, right? And we usually get to the destination that we want to, albeit it may look a little different, right? Because I welcome their input, right? And I want them to feel like the work that they're doing with me is impactful and that they're, making a way for themselves as well. So yes, macro view is typically how I work. Typically at the end of the day, I like to plan my day, for the next day, just so, again, as we spoke on earlier, I don't have to wake up and immediately jump into things. But
Are you a scheduler? Like, is everything in a schedule?
oh yes, definitely. If it's not in the schedule, I probably won't
won't do
remember it. Yes.
I mean, if you have exercise time or workout time or like just time to hang out with your friends or even with yourself, do you put that in the schedule too?
No.
You don't do that?
No.
Okay.
Like all my schedule is all strictly work stuff.
Okay.
And then when I have gaps, I try to end my day every day around 6 o'clock. And in the beginning, that was pretty tough, right? Because as an entrepreneur,
Right.
in the beginning, you're working 12-hour
That's when
days.
you're getting started.
Yes,
After
exactly.
you've done all the admin stuff.
Exactly. This is new. Trust me, this is new. Where I'm able to end my day at 7 o'clock or so, right? And I'd like to get it down even a little bit more than that, but right now time doesn't permit that. My obligations don't permit that, but I'm happy, and I'm young. I can handle it at this stage.
All right. So how do you know when you're productive? I mean, doing things is one thing, busyness is one thing, productive is another thing. What's the feeling that you get, or how do you know when you've had a productive day?
Well, I'll tell you, it used to be a little different. It used to be day by day, right? Especially when I first started my entrepreneurial journey. Some days I would sit at my desk and I get anything done, and I would say, what have I been doing these last 10 hours? Was I not working, or was I kind of working a little bit? But I think the more that my journey has continued on, and the more opportunities that I've gotten, and the more organizations I've been able to be a part of, my day just kind of makes itself now, if that makes sense, right? So now I feel as though the different endeavors that I'm a part of, they'll almost make my day for me, right? And I'll just kind of, make them malleable to work for me.
Right. Because you have to show up
now.
at certain times because there's people there. Like, you have to be there, right?
Exactly. Students here, and clients there, and potential investors there. So I'm constantly moving in that way. And again, like I mentioned a moment ago, I'll schedule things a week out so I can see, at the top of the week, okay, these are the beats that I need to, hit, and then just kind of fill it in from there. Again, that style works well for me.
And then let's look at that flip side called the unproductive time or procrastination. Are there any types of things that you like to procrastinate about? And what do you do when you procrastinate? I mean, some people go on Facebook, and that's like a black hole, but you'll never get out of that. It's 4 hours later. But what do you do to procrastinate if you do that?
I really try to not procrastinate, because procrastination to me means that there's something looming over me that I must get done.
Yeah.
I don't like that energy. So my style, which is probably not the best either, is to just power through, right? I just power through, and then when I'm done, at the end of the day, I'm done, right? That's typically how I like to do it. I actually did, delete all of my social accounts, right? I have a business page for, WebDroid, but outside of that, I'm not on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or any of that stuff, right? Facebook even. And sometimes, my family is like, Josh, you should post, or you should do this. We don't get to see you. And I'm like, guys, I don't want to go into that realm, because I know, it's a distraction for me a lot of times, and I won't be productive, right? I'll be on there just watching other people's lives, like television. I don't like it. Gives me the heebie-jeebies.
I'll tell you, that is so refreshing to hear. And interestingly, in my community, even though these people, many are six-figure businesses, multiple six figures, they are not on these things.
Yes.
They are moving actually to app. If they have to run a class, they'll move to an app that's inside of something else that you don't go anywhere near Facebook.
Yes.
I'm only on Facebook because I'm in a few paid groups that I have to be there because they're pertinent to my work. Otherwise, it's depressing. And the studies back it up. It's not like this is just made up.
Yes,
It's such a time suck, and it's like, nobody's going to die thinking, I wish I spent more time on social.
Yes, or I watch someone's life a little bit more.
And watch their life fall apart. Or watch the A-roll where they're, always in Fiji or wherever,
And I just want to comment on that for a moment, because it's so important, because obviously I work in technology.
Right.
And obviously I'm teaching young people how to make apps, right?
Right. But we're not going to be online.
Yes. I always try to let them know that there are more than, social media apps that you can make, right? There are tools that you can make to improve people's lives. That's usually how I like to go about it. And I think it is very telling that a lot of tech founders don't allow their family, their immediate family, to use the app that they made. I'm like, guys, there has to be some type of, thing that we're missing here, right? If the head of Facebook, the head of Google, right? They don't really they live in these far off lands on a ranch somewhere where they can be one with nature, right? Not living in the inner city with everyone who's just constantly looking at their phones, right? So, and that's another reason why I feel like I'm a good person to, teach the young people how to use the technology correctly, because they don't have anyone in their lives that's ushering them into the technology, slowly but surely, right? They just have it one day, and they, become robots, right?
They become addicted.
Young robots.
They are addicted.
It's a real addiction.
Unfortunately, it is a true addiction because their neural circuitry is built around it. I love that you're modeling this to young folks to know that they can be successful and really have that calm heart and not that heaviness that so many people on social carry and wear.
Yes, and exude. Yes.
Yeah, I love that because and I'm so glad you're communicating that to them, because there is another way to live.
Yes, I definitely try.
And you don't need to be. It's not like stimulus response. We're not Pavlov's dogs.
Yes.
Responding. I mean, it's so bad for the brain.
Yes, we're in control, not the technology, not the phone.
Right. I love it. I know we're getting a little short on time. I want to talk real quick, just a second or two. How do you avoid distractions?
How do I avoid distractions?
Or the shiny object syndrome, real quick.
I think I just try to limit distractions. The things in my life that I feel don't serve me, I cut them out. As soon as I realize that they're not serving me. I'm very specific about that. So again, Facebook, Instagram, right? The shiny object, right? If I have an inclination to want to turn my phone over and look at this or look at that, I'll cut it out, delete it. Right, I only get notifications from certain things. Obviously, I'm talking about a tech version. I do have hobbies, of course.
Right.
Things that may distract me in that route.
Right.
I draw a lot. Obviously, my background is in artwork. I paint. So sometimes I'll say, maybe I'll take a break midday and try to go over there and release my mind and come back. So those things are usually pretty tamed. So that helps.
All right. Well, I love that we could talk both about mindset and planning your workday. This was a great overview of both of these areas, so thank you so much for that. And as we wrap up, I'd like to ask you one quick last question. Okay. If you could provide just one piece of advice to entrepreneurs based upon what we talked today, what would it be?
It would be to stay the course. Stay the course. The journey will be worth it. You can only fail if you give up. That's how I live my life. That's my philosophy. I'll only fail if I truly give up. As long as I don't give up, I won't fail.
Thank you so much, Josh Ashford, for being a guest today and to talking to us about these great topics.
Thanks, Tara.
Absolutely. If you'd like more information about our program, please visit us at www.michiganentrepreneurtv.com. Please join me again in the future when I interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.